Back again for yet another rock and roll tale, and today I'm going to bring something cool to the table for those of you that are into the band Iron Maiden or Quiet Riot. This goes back to the year 1983. Do you guys remember back in the day? Do you remember the movie Heavy Metal Parking Lot, for instance? It used to be a thing where we would camp out in the respective parking lots and or the areas around, like say the Peoria Civic Center in Peoria, Illinois, and the people would resurrect tents and have like keggers and like little parties everywhere, and there would be hundreds of people in line because that's how you got the good tickets back in the early 80s for those kind of corporate sort of big, theater event, not theater, but arena events. And man, it was a whole subculture unto itself. Remember that? I know a lot of you do. But I used to go to tons of those, man, and it was such a trip because whoever got there first would have this like notebook with the, people's names, and your name would go on the list, and you would get a wristband when they came around later, and you'd have your place in line on this notebook. But the trick is you had to stay there because they would come out every so often and switch colors or do different things, and you had to keep your place. Well, I was often there with my friend Brian Watt, who was quite often first in line at the Peoria Civic Center for many, many shows. And I'd get there 3 days before the event, and that guy'd be in his car the first in line, no matter what, hardcore. And he'd have everything he needed, a cooler full of drinks, food, plenty of smoke, if you know what I mean. Lots of delicious, things that keep himself occupied for days. And they had porta potties out there, I believe. I think so. Yeah, but the thing is, man, it was like a huge party, and I can't believe that they let people get away with that stuff back then. We were doing such heavy partying at those things, and they were so fun. But it was just a blast because there was a lot of subculture of different types of rockers, from heavy metal people to punk rock people to, straight up classic rock folks. And on this particular occasion, we were hanging out in the parking lot because we were going to get Iron Maiden tickets. And I think we ended up getting around the 10th row, which wasn't bad for the Civic Center. And, you got to understand, at the time, these guys were awesome, man. Iron Maiden. I'm probably preaching to the choir for those of you that are fans, of course. And those of you that aren't fans probably aren't watching anyway. And if you are, well, open your mind a little because these guys rock. This is one of the best records in my opinion. But they've done so many records since, of course, with Bruce Dickinson on the lead vocals and Paul Di'Anno on the original incarnation on the first couple albums, plus the Made in Japan live album. So we camp out. We get the tickets to see Iron Maiden with opening act Quiet Riot. The cool thing is, both these guys had albums out in 1983. Mental Health by Quiet Riot, a superb rock record. I gotta fess up, man, I haven't heard that album in its entirety in decades. So, because I got so burned out on it from the 80s, honestly. I listened to it yesterday and I was like, wow, I've got to play some of this stuff on the radio show. It's great rock and roll and it stands the test of time, man. It does. Mental Health, great album all the way through. And then, of course, the Maiden. I don't think they've ever released a bad record, in my opinion. So there you go. I'm a fan and I admit it. And I have seen Maiden maybe 6 times over the years with Bruce Dickinson on vocals. Great stuff, man. Mostly in the 80s, once in the 90s and once in the 2000s. But my story today, and I have my notes, Quiet Riot, they came out first. And of course, Kevin Dubrow on the vocals with his infamous black and white striped microphone stand that you see in a lot of their videos and photos. Frankie Benali on the drums, rest in peace to both those guys. Carlos Cavazo on guitar, that guy was amazing. And then of course, the great Rudy Sarzo on bass. What a legend. He's still rocking today too, man. Those guys came out. This isn't necessarily the exact set list, but these are the songs they played that night. Run for Cover, Danger Zone, Love's a Bitch, and then they did Slick Black Cadillac. Love that tune, man. Do you guys remember that, of course, Randy Rhoads was the original guitar player for Quiet Riot, and he did recordings and albums with the guys. 1 or 2 albums, because I used to have them, and I sold them long ago in desperation. But yeah, Randy Rhoads was the original guitar player, and these guys got Carlos Cavazo, and Carlos Cavazos, he was an excellent replacement, and people are gonna go, he's no Randy, but he was pretty damn good, guys. Come on, man, he's really good. And then they did Let's Go Get Crazy, and of course Kevin Dubrow was like, you guys ready to get crazy? Because he was like really infamous for being like, how shall we say, very much carrying on the stereotypical metal banter on stage. You guys ready to get crazy? And then he said that, and they did Let's Get Crazy, you know. And then he would say stuff like, are you ready to get wild? You know, and people are like, yeah. And he'd say, do we have any noisemakers here tonight? Things like that, just very much like a cheerleader, rah, rah. But he was good because he's running back and forth. And, well, with the amount of, you know what, that he was doing back in those days, I guess I can imagine why he had the energy. But, man, they were killer. I'm telling you, man. They were really good. After they did Battle Axe, Carlos busted into a guitar solo. This is a fact, and it was good. Also, Come On, Feel the Noise was one of the highlights for me because that was originally done by the band Slade. And if anyone's a fan of Slade, say no more, right? One of the best English rock and roll, hard rock, glam, rock and roll bands ever, period. And then they also did Mental Health, the title track from their album, which was freaking amazing. And the whole place was singing and going crazy. Everybody in Quiet Riot was exceptional on stage. Those guys were all like a super fury into themselves, like little miniature tornadoes. Like, you know, Rudy would be over here just putting it, he's got such a signature trademark where his head's down and his bass is up here, his bass is down here. He's got so many cool moves that no one ever has come close to Rudy Sarzo, man. Much respect to that guy. Got to see him with Ozzy and other acts later on and down the road too. Carlos Cavazos was also amazing. Just a very, you know, energetic guy. And Frankie Benali twirling his drumsticks and rocking, and at the end he threw the drumsticks out to the crowd. Yeah, I have to say Quiet Riot was really good. Later in life I got kind of sick of him because Kevin became kind of annoying in the end, but nothing against the guy. He had personal problems and demons like many of us do. So, you know, I got to say Mental Health is one of the good rock and roll / metal records of all time. So, guys, I got to fess up though. Oh, he also said at one point, I remember that night, because me and my friends before the show ingested some of the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, if you know what I'm talking about. And we were really, really enjoying the show. Our senses were elevated. You know what I'm saying? Sight, sound. It was great. And I remember him saying, I want you guys to scream so loud that your throats are gonna bleed. I just thought that was great because I was visualizing everyone's throats actually bleeding. And I'm like, this is pretty heavy metal. So yeah, that was Quiet Riot, man, and I gotta say they were good. But yeah, he is the king of the stereotypical stage banter, kind of like Paul Stanley. I'm a huge fan of Kiss, by the way, and I've got some Kiss stories coming. But Paul has got that same sort of great way of engaging the audience, but with it just as, hey, how you doing tonight, Ohio? Oh, you ready to rock? You know, whereas Bruce Dickinson, that man has a completely different style of stage banter. So we're on the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. We're really, really anticipating Iron Maiden. Quiet Riot leaves the stage. A little intermission happens. And then all of a sudden, after a short break, the music comes on from the movie Where Eagles Dare. And it was super suspenseful. And it was like at least a couple of minutes long. And it was just like, dun, dun, dun. If you look it up, it's called a theme song. You can find it on YouTube, I'm guessing. Where Eagles Dare, which of course was the name of one of their tunes from the Peace of Mind album. And of course, I gotta say before I get into the set list, because I have the actual set list from the show. Iron Maiden, wherever they went, kind of like Ozzy, Black Sabbath, wherever those guys would go, there would be like these religious nuts, these sickos that would hang outside the civic centers and all these places and hand out their pamphlets and try to get you to believe like their little cults, whatever particular religion they were espousing. And it was just funny because nobody ever took it seriously. And Bruce Dickinson that night addressed those people on stage. This was back in the days when Bruce has always been outspoken, and he's not been afraid to cuss on stage and be himself. Let's say that. He had hair about down to here at the time. He had his big black gloves on with the wristbands and gloves, and they were super sick, man. He had this big badass belt buckle on with his red spandex and his boots. I'm like, Bruce Dickinson was in top form, and I got to tell you, to this day, that guy is in top form. Lots of respect to Bruce Dickinson, man, both solo and with Maiden. He's also an excellent airplane pilot. Yep, and he's the guy that was flying the band and probably still does fly them to gigs. One of my stories on my other channel, The Church of Rock, I interviewed one of his drummers. Yep, Robin Guy, and he said that he personally got a lift from one gig to another, just him and Dickinson, and it's a crazy story, and you can find it on The Church of Rock, all one word, and if you like it, maybe subscribe. And Robin Guy is also the drummer for Sham 69, Legends, London Punk, England Punk, I should say, England Punk, not London. Okay, my friends, into the Maiden story, because I remember it very well, and I got the actual set list from that night. A lot of little notes here I got to get into. So after the intro, the band breaks into Where Eagles Dare from Peace of Mind. And by the way, for all you your geeks out there that are thinking, what did they do from what albums? They did 2 songs from the first Iron Maiden album, 2 songs from the Killers album, 4 from Number of the Beast, and they did 6 out of 9 or whatever I think it was off of Peace of Mind. So it was killer, man. And here we go with the actual set list. They did Rothschild second, which of course was on the Killers album featuring Paul Di'Anno, the great Paul Di'Anno. And then The Trooper from Peace of Mind. Revelations, oh man, great one from Peace of Mind. And they did Flight of Icarus, which is a big fan favorite of Iron Maiden people. Die With Your Boots On came up next, of course. Then 22 Acacia Avenue from Number of the Beast. Speaking of the Beast, and speaking of the religious zealots handing out pamphlets, Bruce Dickinson did get on stage and address them, and he said something about how everywhere we go, these people are handing out their pamphlets outside of our shows because they think we're playing the devil's music. And he sort of made fun of them, and I gotta tell you, I counted at least 2 or 3 times that man said, God bless you during the show, including the very end when he said at the very end, God bless you, get home safely. Sounds like a real demonic guy to me. Not. Then they did the Number of the Beast, and I gotta tell you, man, right before it started, they busted into the recording over the PA system with Vincent Price's voice from the Number of the Beast album, and it was killer. Because when you're tripping, it's just like, whoa. The whole experience was magnificent because Maiden, those guys don't stop moving on stage either, man. They are a force to be reckoned with even today. Yeah, man, Bruce was up on the amps, climbing stuff, and he was just really engaging. One of the best physical singers I've ever seen in my life. After they did the Number of the Beast, they busted into To Tame a Land, another from Peace of Mind. Then the great Dave Murray, of course, was on the guitar doing his solo. Also, Adrian was the other guitar player. Nico McBrain was the drummer and the master behind the whole act. I think he writes their lyrics and started the whole band. Steve Harris, bass player. He's one of the best in the business, hands down, and everyone knows that. Steve Harris, whew. After the guitar solo, which was 2 or 3 minutes long, Dave Murray's great though, man. Nico McBrain did a drum solo. That was cool. Then they did Hallowed Be Thy Name from Number of the Beast. That's another classic. The Number of the Beast album is just an entity into itself. It's a true masterpiece. It is. Iron Maiden was the last song they did in their set, which is the title track from the first album with the original singer Paul Di'Anno, who actually was a fan of Di'Anno, or of Bruce Dickinson, so there was no animosity between those guys. And at the end of Iron Maiden, or at the beginning of Iron Maiden, I should say, Bruce did introduce the guys in the band, which was really cool. They left the stage and the crowd went nuts. Man, it was really crazy. It seems like the Midwest has always been one of the very best places for rock and roll shows because there's just not a lot of culture and stuff to do like, say, on the coast. So when music came to town, they were known for being some of the best crowds ever. Detroit, Peoria, Chicago, Indianapolis, anywhere like that. So salute, because I'm from Peoria, Illinois, man, and I can tell you, rock and roll was like part of our diet. If it came around, we were supporting. And even today in Peoria, Illinois, they have a very supportive scene. No matter what kind of music it is, it's extremely tight, man. So hats off to whatever's left of a punk scene there, or rock and roll scenes. I do keep up on Facebook and stuff, and there's a lot of good bands out of Peoria, Illinois, so cheers to them. So the band left the stage, came back and did their first encore. They did 2 encores this night, which is rare. I don't see that happen often. But they did Run to the Hills, which is awesome. The video was in heavy rotation on MTV. Remember the MTV Day guys? MTV Days guys? Because that was the days before MTV became something that it was. It was before it became something that it was later, when it wasn't like a music video station anymore. Boy, I'm tripping over my words, man. Maybe that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is still in my system. Nah. So after they did Run to the Hills, Sanctuary. Yeah, from the first album, which was a treat. Then they left the stage, and I thought, well, we should probably leave. But the house light stayed down because that audience was so ferocious that they came out again. I was like, wow, a second encore? Woohoo! What are they going to do? And they did Drifter from the Killers album, and that, my friends, had me in high heaven. Not that I wasn't already there, man. The only thing I wish I could remember was who in the hell I was with at that particular concert. If you remember and you're watching this and you were with me, please leave a comment down below. And if you could do me a favor, you guys, and subscribe to this channel. And I don't want to sound generic, but if you could like this video, if you dig it, maybe leave a comment, because I do comment back to everybody. And also share if you want to. I'll have more tales soon. I've got over 1,000 different stories in a notebook, and I intend to share each and every one of them. Is there anything I forgot? Yes, there is. Oh, I'm so glad I looked at my notes, you guys. Not only did Bruce Dickinson did his traditional yo, 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 yo. Yep, that's something he used to do. He'd get the audience. He'd go from side of the stage to side of the stage. And before he did the song Iron Maiden, he did a yo, 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 yo. And then the audience would do that. Imagine the whole, like, 10,000 people, whatever it is, 15,000 people singing that in unison. It was awesome, and it felt good. You know, we're all singing together with this awesome singer. Those dudes were so amazing. He was one of the best, most engaging frontmen I've ever seen, hands down. I got to say that he did mention something during the show about smelling strange substances coming from the front area. So he's always been vocal about not being into the weed, and I don't think those guys are known for being partiers of any kind. Hats off to them, man. They're all still alive. Not saying that smoking weed is going to kill you. I'm not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, I feel like it keeps you alive longer, if you want to know the truth. But I'm talking about partying. I think the Maiden guys have always been very disciplined, and it shows. Again, they're all still alive too, man. So, you know, here's the highlight that I almost forgot, and I would have been mad, and I would have had to film the whole thing over again. During the show, I don't know at what point, but during the show, a 12-foot Eddie, yep, their trademark Eddie, comes out onto the stage and traipsing across, and imagine us tripping. We're all just like, whoa, is this mechanical? Is there a guy in there? Is it a robot? Is it real? It's freaking Eddie. It was cool because this guy comes out with this big old Eddie head, and he's got a big chain around his neck. It looked like he had broken free from being chained up, and he had a straitjacket on. So it was just super sick. And like I say, I think it was 12 foot because I looked it up, and that's what they said how tall it was on that tour. So I don't know how they did it. I'm sure it was a guy walking, and then the Eddie part probably fit over his head, but it was super cool because he walked around the stage, and they had the smoke and lights going. They were a very visual band, Iron Maiden. Very, very visual. And I got to tell you, there wasn't a guy in that band that wasn't extremely energetic and moving around the whole time, man. And yeah, no wonder they stay in such good shape, you know. But again, staying sober and all that probably helps, right? Hey, man, thanks for watching, you guys. Sorry to ramble on so long, and I will have something equally cool, if not better, soon, I hope. Of course, you may say, this isn't cool at all, dude. This really sucked, bro. Don't make any more. Adios. Stay real, rockers.